My friends, no shame was given this episode. We are going to tell some of our finest, are they finest? Maybe least finest moments from college and beyond. Whether it's showing up late to class, showing up in embarrassing clothing, or Nick's receding hairline. Everything this episode is on the table, including the finale of Game of Thrones. And speaking of embarrassing, we're going to start off by playing a quick game that ends up being a little bit embarrassing for one of us. I'm not going to name names, but it's me. Anyway, welcome to, if I may, episode 49. Let's go.
Guess the sound.
Is the tapping necessary, or are you just lifting something up and re-rubbing on it?
No, it's necessary.
Ooh. Okay, hold on. No, this is great. Can I ask yes or no questions? How about that?
Okay. Give me 1 second.
I can ask any question, but it's got to be a yes or no question.
Okay. All right. We'll work towards it. Guess this sound.
All right. Do the sound one more time.
Oh, that just hurts my ears.
No, it doesn't. It's quiet. Is it plastic?
Oh my!
It is.
They're very sensitive.
Brent, I didn't hear Dylan's answer.
He said it is.
It's plastic. Are both pieces that you're touching together plastic?
No.
Is it a metal spoon on a bowl?
Partially correct. It is a metal spoon.
Metal spoon on a plate?
Nope.
Metal spoon on a piece of eating utensil in general?
Define.
The thing you're rubbing the spoon on is something you use for cooking or eating.
No.
Ooh, so it's spoon rubbing on something else. That's not. The other thing has nothing to do with
food.
Okay.
It does have to do with,
but it doesn't have anything to do with cooking or eating.
Well, define eating.
Oh,
because...
are you mixing Nesquik? Nailed it!
Well, that's Kyle's classic.
No, that's Dylan's classic.
It took him forever to get it.
Sorry.
I don't know why it took you so long.
Dylan likes Nesquik. I'm more of a Hershey syrup guy if I'm going to mix my own.
Well, the idea, though. The idea was something I picked up from you, Kyle.
Nope.
Oh,
Why buy
here.
chocolate milk when you can make it yourself?
I would never buy chocolate milk. That's just
Okay,
humanly
here.
insane.
I got a new one. All right, what is this sound? Oh, it's not picking up as well as I was hoping.
I was gonna say I didn't hear anything yet.
Nobody knows.
It's not going to work. It was Bucky balls, like the little ball magnets.
Oh, were they slightly hit together?
Yeah, I was having them hit together, like peeling them apart.
I feel like I probably would have figured that out, but
it wasn't loud enough to get picked up. Brent, make a sound.
I got one.
That was you smacking your boom stand.
Nope. Can you hear it? Put it right next to the mic.
Don't rub it on the mic.
Next to it.
Are you rubbing your hair?
Nope. Can you not hear it?
Are you rubbing a brush of some
I can
sort?
hear it. It sounds like you're scratching something.
I can't do too much more of this. It's making a mess.
You're brushing maple. Back it away from the mic a little bit as you're doing it.
What?
Like, do it farther away from the mic. It's almost too loud.
All right. I can't do it. I have 40 tissues in my hand now. And it's just not good.
I would have never guessed that.
At some point, you just have to call it quit. My hand... I'll take a picture of this.
That was gold.
I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you.
Kyle, have you seen The Magician where he stands on America's Got Talent and he does like meaningless things, but it comes off as magic? So like one of them is where he stands on stage with a Kleenex box and he pulls one out and another one's like magically there.
I've seen that. That was good. It was like just common everyday things that are just mind blowing.
I got magic. Put all these back in. Oh, all right.
Just shove them in there and wait for Heather to find them. What is this?
She pulls one out, another one doesn't follow it. Whoever
There's like none in there.
This is broken.
Well, the thing is, now that I pulled them out, it looks like it's all like they've all been used, and I just put them back in. They're like scrunched up, like I sniffled my nose. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna put them all back in.
I know, I have 40 Kleenex in my hand. Nick, what's your favorite bobblehead? Is Nick talking? Because I can't hear him at all.
No, I do not talk bobbleheads. I don't have a favorite bobblehead. Why are we talking about bobbleheads?
Because we're looking for topics to like start the podcast on. We got a great clip of Brent with the whole "What's that sound?" But we haven't led into anything else meaningful since. And
Well, I would say bobbleheads are meaning. You know, if you shop
No.
PBS,
No,
You get
bobbleheads are not useful or meaningful or
It
anything.
doesn't need to be meaningful or useful to be a podcast topic. That's the joy of the internet.
Okay,
99% of all stuff
Well, it's
on
one of those, like,
the
collector
internet
objects.
is
your bland bullshit.
bland bullshit. I don't know. I mean, there's been other topics from
There's some really
Don't wanna get into it.
super expensive bobbleheads that are super rare.
Right. It's just, I think it's like a collector's thing, just like baseball cards or, anything like that. It's, you basically are you collecting bobbleheads instead of those. Or what's another thing that you get just like one of, or you get it for free and you don't really care, but I'm
Magnets.
sure somebody collects them.
Magnets or spoons. Those are like the most common collectibles.
Yeah, those baby spoon things. Like,
Yep.
that's a stupid
My
collection.
mom had a whole collection of little spoons
Like,
from around
what?
the world.
Spoons. My mom did those pens that have like the floaty things inside of them. So like she'd go on a cruise and get like a cruise pen, and so like the whole pen would have like a cruise ship floaty inside of it that would like slide back and forth as you tilt the thing. She had a collection of those.
Where's the line between collecting something and hoarding? Like, there's got to be a middle line there. Like, yeah, I have a collection of some random thing like bobbleheads, or I just don't throw out bobbleheads. I have too many. Like, is there a line where a collection gets over the top, or not?
I mean, I think if it's like branded to be a collector's thing, that's one thing. But if they're just collecting random stuff, like there's a guy that has like the Guinness Book of World Records, great example of people that just hoard random stuff. Because like there's the world record for the world's largest like chocolate or ketchup collection. Yeah, the world's largest ketchup collection, the world's largest mustard collection. It's like, what? Like, why? And it's an individual, not like a company where it might actually make sense for them to have samples of different people's product. But like, literally just an individual has the largest collection of ketchup and or mustard. It's like, what? Why? Like, why? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
That sounds like hoarding to me. But doesn't ketchup and that stuff go bad after a while too? Do you ever intend to eat the ketchup, or what's like? I don't. That's where a collection does like loses me a little bit. What do you gain from it? Like, what do you get from having bobbleheads? Maybe a little bit of joy, but
Or like
I
the
don't
pop vinyls. I know my brother does the pop vinyls a lot, and it's like, I mean, those I kind of get because they're like of characters you're emotionally invested in. But I don't know. I guess bobbleheads would be kind of the same.
Yeah, but then Game of Thrones comes along and ruins all the characters you were quote unquote emotionally invested in.
Nick is very butthurt this week, as we all are. I think Nick takes it a little bit more personally than most of us, per his Game of Thrones seriousness, as we've alluded to earlier. But yeah,
Yeah. So
Nick, do you have
as
any
far
games
sorry,
for bobbleheads?
staying on the collection.
They exist. They're out there.
Staying on the collection standpoint, one thing I can point to, I had a college buddy whose dad collected hats. It was a very normal collection, nothing fantastic. I don't think he had a hat worth more than $30. I think most of them were probably $10 to $15 souvenir hats from places that he had traveled. Mostly baseball caps, if not all baseball caps. I can't remember perfectly. But what really stood out about his collection is that he stored them in the rafters of his basement. So it wasn't a basement that was entirely finished. So the ceiling, essentially, and he hung all of his hats in the space between the wood in the ceiling area. So that worked out really, really well and was kind of cool and kind of inspired me to buy a bunch of new baseball caps, which I've stopped doing since because I just don't need to wear them that much. And I've never worried that much about going bald, which admittedly I am. I have a lot of thinning going on.
Not afraid to admit it.
Oh, I have no problem with hair very short to begin with, but I have no grand illusions of saying that I haven't had a receding hairline and that I'm not thinning out in certain areas. However, it doesn't.
We need a sponsor for that. If somebody wants to, if some company wants to sponsor us for that, we don't even need to pay us. Just give Nick products so he doesn't go bald.
Exactly.
Save our friend. Save our friend.
Save Nick's hair.
Let's start a GoFundMe because that's the generational.
I was gonna say we'll start a GoFundMe. Save my friend's hair.
We need
the thing there is
5 people to pledge $1 a month.
Exactly.
And we can buy them some hair product.
Heard on hair is it comes from your mother's father for men. I think.
Oh, I'm screwed.
Like an urban legend. I don't know if it has any actuality in the statement, but that was what I was always told. Where your hair comes from your mother's father. It comes from your mother's side.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought you got it from your grandparents. Like the majority of your traits are actually from your grandparents.
I really hope my hair is from the grandpa on my dad's side because he had a great head of hair. My mom's dad, not so much.
Ironically, I have a bit of a similar situation where my grandfather on my father's side has a full head of hair and he's pushing close to 70 if he's not. He might be over 70 actually, which makes me a horrible grandchild for not knowing. But he has a full head of hair still. And my mother's father, my grandfather, obviously on that side, had thinning hair into his late 60s. And I think he passed in a nursing home around that age. I was very young when that occurred, but he still had hair. Now, it wasn't a lot, and it was certainly just kind of wispy and thin, but I could claim that theoretically I still have hair. But I have a couple family members. I have an uncle and I have a cousin who are both bald. And I think for men, bald looks good. It's maybe just my opinion, and it's kind of always been my opinion. I've always thought my uncle looked cool. I always thought my cousin.
If I had
looked
thinning
good.
hair, I'd claim that as well.
All right, I got you, Nick. I googled the #1 product for balding for thinning hair, and I came up with for the #1 shampoo. It came up with Ultrax Labs Hair Surge, which is on Amazon.com for $56. So
That's
we
it.
can start GoFundMe. We can start
GoFundMe for $60.
$60, and we could buy you Ultrax Labs Hair Surge shampoo. It's the #1 rated shampoo.
I really would appreciate that, but at the same time, I'm the kid who grew up and didn't want to wear contacts because it was too much effort, and I didn't care that girls would call me nerdy or I'd be called Four Eyes or anything like that. I've never been that concerned with my appearance. Like, it's just not in my personality.
We are concerned, Nick. We are concerned.
Presenting the group
for your future wife's sake.
Individual, I need to have hair, is what you're saying?
No. I'm just saying that if you are willing, if you want the help, we're here for you.
Or better yet, we'll start a T-shirt. We'll do a T-shirt for saving Nick's hair, and we'll put all merch sales towards Nick's shampoo product that will save his hair.
Except for it'll probably end up ruining it. I just imagine from those TV shows.
Yeah, right.
The hair, he has weird hair.
I start growing like all red hair as opposed to my natural
gives you a 6-pack.
Gives him
a hairy 6-pack. No, it doesn't actually.
It's like a bunch
grows
of
out of my gut. Yes, that would be fantastic.
Start growing ear hair like crazy.
Yeah. So No, I've never been that concerned with how I look. Certainly, I can clean up in my LinkedIn profile picture and my Facebook pictures occasionally. Whenever I update those, are generally flattering, angles at least. But I've just never been horribly concerned about. I'm not the guy who wakes up and I don't know how women do it. The stereotypical girl in high school who gets up and takes time to do her hair and shower and do makeup and all this other crap.
So much effort.
I mean, but I love it especially going to a school where there weren't a lot of women. By like sophomore year, at least, most of the women at Michigan Tech just stopped trying because they realized they didn't need to. And at the beginning of every year, you see all these freshmen just dolled up who are going into class, who are, put all this effort into getting ready in the dorms and prepping to go to class and just have a day.
Nobody cares.
And by sophomore year, I think everyone was just in yoga pants and sweatshirts. And like, if you got them to wear jeans to class, it was a good day or something was up.
I think that's a generic college thing.
Peninsula.
I would say very rapidly.
I just wore snow pants to class. I didn't wear anything underneath them.
Just snow pants?
Just snow pants. You remember my bright yellow snow pants?
No way.
I just went to school or went to class in my bright yellow snow pants and underwear, and that was it.
That might be TMI.
No, it's not. That was just like, at that point, like, you're just relaxed, and you had to wear snow pants to get to class because we were walking in like a couple feet of snow.
I know that struggle at Michigan Tech. I mean, you just wore whatever. Hunting season was always the most interesting because I came into class one day with blood on me, and I've seen a number of other students that are walking around campus, and it's like it's deer season, and this dude clearly just shot a deer this morning and did not have time to change from gutting the animal to come to class. You're just like, it's a bunch of dried blood.
What's So I have my story, but I'll let you guys go first. What is the worst way you showed up to a college class? Like, whether that's hungover or, whatever. What's the worst way you've actually attended a class? Brent.
Would you like to go first on this?
Yeah.
Brent's got it, I'm
the
sure.
only person. In Madison, I was super cool. For some reason, it was -40. They were closing schools down. I was the only person to wear snow pants. I don't know how people got to class. I embraced it. I mean, maybe in the other places, other schools, they are a little bit more practical, but nobody in Madison wanted to wear snow pants.
So,
but
Brent,
I showed to class,
quick,
and I'm just decked up.
So that's
I'm
the
ready to
most
go.
embarrassing time or craziest thing you've worn to class?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, I would just wear whatever. I don't know.
I just didn't go. If I was in a situation where I was not fit for class, I just didn't go.
Sometimes I'd go with like mouse dung. Like I'd smell terrible and my shirt would be all wet because I worked at a research lab where I'd clean out mouse cages, and sometimes I'd come just covered in that stuff. But it's not embarrassing. That's just you're doing work,
I had a class where the night before I had been at a rugby party and I was wearing a sweatshirt, and the next day it was not quite warm enough for a jacket, and I was a little hungover. I would say I wasn't crazy hungover, but I was definitely a little hungover. It was, like a 9:00 class or something like that. And I got changed, I showered, whatnot. Like I fully prepared myself for class, but then I threw on that same sweatshirt and walked to class. I didn't realize, I just didn't, it didn't comprehend that I just wore this last night to a rugby party. I get into class, I'm in the middle of the room, and halfway through the class, I realize my sweatshirt is soaked in beer. I just reek of beer. So I take the sweatshirt off and I put it inside my backpack to try to mask it a little bit, but I can tell I still smell like beer, this soaking wet sweatshirt.
People around you are staring.
No, nobody's I was surprised nobody said anything because I must have reeked of beer because it was literally part of my sweatshirt was soaked in beer. That was definitely one of the worst. I would say the second worst would be going to class with my rugby haircut for Mudfest in Platteville.
Oh, that's all in good fun though.
Yeah, but when you have a vagina,
yours was bad,
when you have
though.
a
Yours was
vagina
bad. You had,
shaved in the top of your head. Literally, the top of my head was shaved bald, had an outline of a vagina with like some of my bangs left over to be the happy trail, and a penis in the back of my head. Like it was, mine was terrible.
We might have had different college experiences.
I don't remember. I don't remember what mine was. I think I had a double mohawk or something. Where like I had
You had a mohawk something.
Mine was cool though. I liked it, but I don't think I've ever gone to class. I don't think I've ever gone to class where I wasn't like prepared beforehand. I've never really had like an embarrassing moment. Like when I went to class in snow pants and underwear, like that was on purpose. But have you guys ever had like a walk of shame where like you go out and you do something that is kind of embarrassing and then you have to like walk home? And like I remember we used to sit like we'd like set out a couch on the balcony out on the yard even, and like we would just like hoot and holler at all the girls that were like walking home like the next morning.
You're literally one of those like sexist peoples that college campuses claim about, like complain about.
Yeah, probably. No, probably, but like
You're
but
literally the
I've had those
stereotypical
moments
frat
myself.
kid that's wooting at a kid.
Yeah, that's true. But I've had those moments myself. Kyle, do you remember? I think you picked me up from my rugby experience.
I did.
And
I picked you and your buddy
I had to
up
walk
from...
back. Yeah, I had to walk back to the barracks with my legs sharpied black. Like that was very
It's
embarrassing.
funny how you call dorms barracks.
I guess they are dorms, aren't they?
But yes.
Forgive me.
Yeah.
But I had to. That was bad.
I remember.
Bad
I
memory,
picked up
so I
you
had
and
to
one
do
of your
it.
buddies from your rugby initiation, and I don't know.
Yep.
Me personally, in rugby initiation, I think I got more beer on me than in me. Maybe that'll be a story for another podcast. But yeah,
You're supposed to. You're
yeah.
supposed to be
Well,
covering
yeah.
beer.
I remember I picked up you and your buddy, and you were just so super smelly. And yeah, I forgot where I dropped you off, but you're like, "This is fine." And then I dropped you guys off, and then yeah, you walked to your dorm. Very drunk.
So, if I may, I believe I know you, Kyle, were an RA, and I believe Dylan was as well. How does being an RA and being on the rugby team work?
It didn't.
I was
You
gonna say,
know, you
those
don't.
seem
You
like
stop
they're-
being on the rugby team.
You gotta choose one or the other.
Those are different lives. That's
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember like when I
mine,
was an
but-
RA, I think the rugby guys were practicing once and we had an event nearby, and like after the event I like ran over and like joined into practice for a little bit. But yeah, that's about the maximum I was able to rugby while also being an RA.
Yeah, being an RA kind of took up so much time that you kind of have to choose one or the other, and also one is responsible, the other was not really that responsible unless you like took it seriously, which some people did. A lot of those guys played rugby like after college, and they play in men's leagues, and they still play. I still see messages all the time of people that I used to play with in college, and they're now like they're still playing on men's leagues, which is kind of cool. Like I'm kind of jealous. Like I part of me wishes I would have like stayed in it. But there's like a larger percent of me that's like, it's probably good that I got out of that.
Nick, you had something?
Go back to the shame comments and my experiences. I don't think I have any shame as far as walk of shame or whatever it may
Shameless.
be.
not surprising.
Prime example was in my freshman year of college. I was on the football team, and as a hazing ritual that was PC enough to not get anyone in any serious trouble, after a very cold practice, we were all headed to the showers. We took showers, and then the older upperclassmen were the first ones out of the showers, and they had prepared with an arsenal of Gold Bond powder. And anytime any of the freshmen came out of the showers, hammered with this powder, like they were throwing it at them
Make it snow.
exactly, just covering them. And after my first time stepping out and seeing everyone else getting covered with it, I just kind of scratched my head. And I've always been more of a thinker than your standard football player. I said to myself,
we got a smart one
okay,
here.
they're all
Go back in
standing
the
at the
shower.
exit to the showers. There's another exit through the pool, and I can walk all the way around. And I just said, screw it. In nothing but a towel, through the pool, through the SDC is the building name at Michigan Tech, and I walked past the receptionist like in nothing but a towel, and I just walked, and
Hey,
there were
how's it
people
going?
going by, and I'm just like, I'm headed back to the shower. Who was gonna stop me? Nobody. Who was gonna care?
Well, especially when all the workers are also college kids. They don't care.
Yeah. I mean, they're just looking at me basically in nothing but a towel, and I just smile at them. I'm like,
I just feel
How
bad
you
for the
doing?
poor soul that had to clean that up after the football team left.
yeah, I'm sure that was a bit of a mess, but that was kind of the prime example of I just don't care. Like growing up, I went to the YMCA in Appleton, and I grew up going very early in the morning when all the old guys are there, and they just walk around naked, and nudity it kind of doesn't really affect me. Like it's just, oh yeah, it's a guy. Oh yeah, it's a girl. Okay, if a girl's hot, yeah, I'm gonna look. But it's just like, oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's a thing. Okay, but you get over it so quick. It's like, okay, cool. Like we're humans.
And to be fair, that's not Nick being disloyal to Megan. That's a guy thing. If there's a naked girl nearby,
Can't not
like
look.
you can't not. You can try not to, but you're gonna.
Nature.
There's gonna be a little peek.
At any rate, that was kind of a.
what if I may, real quick? What situations do you get in where there's like a naked girl?
That's what I'm
around?
saying. It never ever happens. So when it does,
nudist
like
beach? I've been on a couple.
I live a pretty exciting life then, because that happens fairly regularly.
I guess I don't go to the gym.
I feel like I always miss out on the naked women around me. Like I just miss it somehow. Like I remember we were going like camping once, and apparently like everybody else in the group was like freaking out, and I was like, what? And like apparently there was this like lady just like changing, was basically completely naked next to her van or whatever, changing to go into her swimming suit to go to the beach. Like I just like straight up missed it. I was like, oh well, I guess I missed it.
See, and I have friends who are in the other category with me who we never miss this. Wherever, whenever it is, somehow I'm there and I see it. Like I remember distinctly like growing up, going to a soccer game in Wisconsin. And we were on our way and we had to walk past a small neighborhood because there was a lot of parking issues. And there were two people having sex in a bush. And I legitimately like just looked at it. I looked at my dad and I looked at it and I just kept walking. I'm just like, that's not normal. Like it registered even as a younger kid playing soccer. I'm
How's
like,
it going, guys?
okay. But after, a little bit, my brain kind of realized what it was. But I mean, there's that kind of stuff. And then I'm not the only one, certainly, Kyle, who sees these things. And I know it because was a phenomenon amongst our friends. And it was an ongoing joke where the number of, this is going to get graphic, but not too graphic. We'll keep it relatively PC, PG-13 level at least.
We're talking about naked people here. This is
The number of boobs that guys had seen was an odd number. Because at some point there was a nip slip per se, where someone saw one of someone else's boobs, and then I think one of our friends had the ongoing joke that he always wanted to keep his total number of boobs seen in real life, not counting the internet or what have you, as an odd number, and that was an ongoing joke within the friend group.
what if somebody like a third nipple or something? How does he count that?
Incidentally, something happened again where someone showed their one boob, or again, it just happened, however it happened. And he was super upset. And like, of course it's a great ploy, but basically asked the girl to see the other one so he could keep his number odd. And it's just like, well played. But
Did it work?
That's a great
yes,
excuse.
Yes, it did.
I mean, if she's already
Yes,
flashing
it did.
one, I mean, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be able to get her to flash the other if you have a pretty good reasoning.
If they're down to earth and, playful or flirty, it helps that this friend was or is relatively attractive. He's not some creeper guy, breathing. Can I see the other one? Like, no, it wasn't anything gross or whatever.
God.
The situation was
Hey, don't talk about
hilarious
Brent like
in
that.
hindsight. And I'm not the only one. Not the only one who finds and sees these things just out of the random, where it's just like, you see that? And then, of course, someone like Kyle, no offense, just what? Whereas other people are on my level occasionally. and
Wait,
just
you
don't
say
miss
that
these
what?
things.
Like I'm completely clueless. I just
Kyle, he's
You
high-
just said you miss these things all the time.
I don't people watch. Like Juliana,
I love
is
people watching.
a
It's so
crazy
much fun.
people watcher. We'll be like walking through the mall and be like, "Did you see them?" I'm like, no, I was not. I was looking at which store I wanted to go to, or like that the pretzel, the Aunt Jemima pretzels or whatever. Or
Yes.
yeah.
Looking at the
You know what I'm talking about.
pretzels.
Like I was looking
I
at
feel
those.
ya.
I'm sorry. Like I was not paying attention to all the other people around me. I just wasn't.
I'd say I'm a people watcher.
Definitely a people watcher.
I think that's my favorite thing about going out in public is seeing all the crazy people. Like,
There's definitely
I
some.
feel like my goal is to find like the craziest thing to like just see in a public setting.
I don't know if I said this on the podcast before, but yeah, New York City is one of the places I will definitely people watch. And there was this guy last time I went to New York City who I was like walking down the street and he was like crunched over in like against a wall, but like in like a little nook against the wall. I'm like, what the heck? Like, what is he like? He was like hunched over. I was like, okay, is he like making a deal or going crazy or what? So I like paid a little bit more attention, and he was lighting up, no joke, at least a full pack of cigarettes in his mouth at one time. Just like, like the entire pack at once. Like I'm not even exaggerating. Like it was legit an entire, and it wasn't just like a standard like Marlboro or whatever. Like it was like almost cigars where they're like almost hand wrapped looking, where they're like brown. It was like an entire pack worth of those that he was lighting up all at once. And then he turns around pretty much right as I finished passing him. He takes them with like the pointer finger and thumb. Like that's the bundle of these he had. He takes it out of his mouth, breathes out, puts it right back in and starts smoking on it. It was like, oh my God, dude.
I'm not a doctor, but that sounds unhealthy.
It was just like, holy shit. Like that was so many cigarettes at once.
Probably blunts.
It didn't smell like a blunt. It did not smell like the THC, but yeah, it was like, oh my God, dude. Like, I know, Brent, you once told a story about like how in cross country, as you like run past people that are smoking, everybody'd be like, cancer, cancer.
Oh my gosh.
That's exactly what I was thinking with this guy. Is like, oh, death, just death. Like that's not just cancer. You're insta dead.
Well, when you're running, you want to be healthy. So when people smoke, they're trying to ruin your season, is the thought. So you had to let them have it. That's one of those things too. When you're running cross country, you just get really, really bored. I mean, especially if you're putting in like 5-6 miles. So
I get bored playing my sport.
Like I would say good morning to almost everyone I saw, no matter what time of day, because like you got to do something to entertain yourself. There'd be different games and stories. One game I think we play that is definitely not politically correct, and we're high school, just to clarify. But we'd always play the guy or girl, because when you're far away from someone, you're looking at them. Sometimes it's really hard to tell. So you
especially from a distance, you don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they're a Z. You don't know.
And the man buns.
Yeah, man buns and all that. So it was just
especially in cross country
European handbags.
All the cross country runners had man buns.
So if I may, Brent, are you implying that there are in fact only two genders?
Oh my God, I'm not getting into this. It's a trap. It's a
Brent,
trap.
How rude of you. How insensitive.
I knew it. I know. High school me was such a bad kid. I lived on the edge.
So
it's
yeah, but basically your cross country was so boring you had to make up games. Like your sport.
Yeah, you would.
Your sport was boring. So boring.
Yes. Tell it. Preach.
Like, give it to us, Kyle. Give it to us.
I will say, like, my favorite cross country shirt is the one that's like, "Oh, my sport is your sport's punishment." But it's like I never understood running.
Sport?
Yeah, right. It's not a sport. To be fair, cross country is not a sport. It is a race. It is a competition. It is not a sport.
It is putting.
I feel like have we had the sport conversation on the podcast yet?
We have.
We've touched on it already.
Racing, cross country is a race or a competition. It's not a sport.
So I don't know if
it's a very tough competition though, because golf's a competition. You don't get as tired playing golf as you.
I agree. Golf is also a competition.
But we don't need to get into it. I agree. I'll take competition. As long as there's a competitive nature to it, I'm cool with it. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things I wanted to touch on is we were reminiscing with our college stories, and Brent, you're talking about being such a horrible person or a kid who's on the edge growing up. One of the things that came to mind in being remotely shameful, although again, I had no shame. I'll leave names out of it other than my shameful self. But in college, I had a roommate that shared an 8 a.m. class with me. And what we would do before every 8 a.m. class, we actually made, I think, all of them. If we missed one, I can't remember it. We always made this 8 a.m. class. I'm not sure if it was affecting our grade or what our motivation was to go to this 8 a.m. class, but we went, and our standard policy is whoever woke up first got to wake the other one up by cracking a beer in their face.
Let's go.
That was how you woke them up. They'd have to slam the beer, and then the other individual would have to have their beer on the way to class.
I would have been waking up to having to chug a beer at all times, every day, if that was the case.
Yes. Especially in college, you would have.
So yeah, we had to wake each other up by cracking a beer, and then we went to 8 a.m. class. And then the other drinking related event for class was on Fridays. I had a cost accounting class with a teacher who was pushing 75, 80 years old, lovely old lady, but she was fine. She was just oblivious to the world, and she would have her lesson plan, and she would face the board, and she would talk to the board and write on the board, and the notes would be on the board, and that was sufficient. But she'd never look at the class outside of, if you interrupted her. And there was an individual who I had been through, because it was a small college, several classes with, who always sat in the front row. And this wasn't the, yes, they're going to be a CPA, they're brilliant, I'm sitting in the front row. No, this was I needed the attention, and I'm going to talk just because I need to talk in the front row. He would always say the snarkiest, most idiotic things possible. Like if I were to try and think of something dirty off of every sentence Kyle says, and then at least every 2 to 3 sentences just come in with that's what she said. Like the whole class would just be groan. Now it was accounting related. It was business related, but he prided himself on being able to seem so snarky, and it was just the stupidest stuff ever. So what I did on Fridays, my ritual became, I would bring a water bottle to class, and I would have a mixed beverage of choice in that water bottle. And every time that guy opened his mouth and said something stupid,
take a drink.
I'd take a drink, not a big drink, just a drink. And I don't think there was one Friday that I didn't finish my drink before the end of the class. And enough because I had friends in the class that I talked to, or could smell my breath or whatever it was. It became a bit of a known fact that I did this on Fridays. And anytime he said something stupid, everyone would look at me, and I would gauge whether or not it was drink worthy. Just kind of be like, all right, raise my water bottle, take a sip.
I'm kind of surprised the people around you didn't bring a drink to like drink with you.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things you can't really tell anybody around you, right? Because only one of them has to be a little douchebag about it, and then you'll get screwed over by, some policy.
I had a classmate who regularly chewed and spit in class. That was a pretty common practice. So tobacco was allowed, alcohol. If I was 21 and I didn't have a container that was obviously containing alcohol, how could you tell?
Right, but
Probably
I'm just saying you can't really. It's hard to get other people around you to participate, because then you'd have to trust them, them directly, in order to know that they're not going to be a narc or do something stupid where you're going to get in trouble for it.
Agreed. But those were some of my antics in class that I had zero shame about. Drew, I graduated.
I definitely went to less than half. I definitely went to less than half of my total engineering accounting class, and I aced that class. It was the stupidest class in the world. Literally attended maybe 1 in 3 classes on it might have been close to that, and I still got an A in that class. It was the dumbest class ever. It was because it was literally just all formulas. As long as you get it, you would just go to the test, and you'd have the book for all the tests. And I was just good enough at this junk that I could just learn it on the spot if I needed to.
If you guys were to go back, would you have done it the same way? Like, would you guys still do the whimsical or drinking in class or whatever? Would you have changed your behavior knowing what you know now, or Is that like an
we're
acceptable way to go
literally
through
going
college?
back with my current memories, I would do more messing around.
Yeah, I take that same stance. Knowing now what the corporate world expects from interns, it's hilarious to me. Most interns are fulfilling their goal if they're able to figure out how to use the printer and get coffee. And that's not just a sitcom stereotype. Like legitimately, I've been there with managers who have worked in a field for 15 years, 30 years. A long tenured individual who's just like, oh yeah, well, maybe I can get the intern to do that, see if they can figure it out. Like it's not anything. It's just like, yeah, the printer, you're young, you can figure out the technology. Good luck. That'll be your next month of work. like I mean, just that whole
slightly
experience.
higher standards in the engineering world, but about the same.
I'm sure in the engineering world, but in business per se, yeah, the bar is low, and of course you want to do better, and you want to do well, and represent yourself, but at the same time, like the bar is set so low that it's comical. The one thing I would say I would consider doing differently is my freshman year. I think joining a fraternity could have been cool. I don't have any regrets for not having done it, but I would say, okay, if we're going to try something,
join rugby. It's way better.
Yeah, fraternities were kind of frowned upon in our school.
The school and the setup. Most of my friends were in the fraternities, and the fraternities were the places to be in the summers. And that would be the other thing. Sorry, I would stay in Houghton for the summers. I only did one summer up there, and it was the best summer of my life. Now it was easily, or it was better because I was an upperclassman, because I knew everyone in town essentially, and that made it really easy. But for one summer of my life, I was the cliche popular dude. Like I wake up and I've got 8 to 12 texts blowing up my phone saying, "Hey, what are we doing today?" And I'd wake up and I'd look at my roommate or call a buddy and just be like, "Hey,
what do we feel
all
like
these
doing?
people want to do something. What do you want to do?" And I think Devin and I just basically decided, because volleyball was our favorite thing to do and it allowed everybody to participate in some way, shape, or form. It's like, okay, well, where do you want to play volleyball today? Well, there's Hancock Beach. There's this fraternity, that fraternity. We can do this. We can do that. And basically, I was the cliche popular college guy where I just said, here's what we're doing today, and here's where we're doing it. And I wasn't a member of the fraternities, and I'd still be like, yeah, we're going to this fraternity house. I want to play on their court. It's a little nicer. They have something that'll be beneficial for later or whatever. But I ran things for one summer, and it was one of the coolest summers, one of the coolest feelings of my life, just being the hub of social interaction in Houghton at that time. And not saying that it'll never get better than that in my life or anything horrible like that, but it was just a really cool time period and a really cool feeling. The power doesn't necessarily go to my head like I need power, I need to control people or anything stupid like that, but it was just a cool feeling to always be wanted, to always people would look to me for guidance on what was going to happen socially for the week essentially. And that was a really cool feeling and a really cool time to kind of be in my element, do what I want to do, and have everyone hang out. And it's not like I called every shot, but that was a really cool period.
I would agree with that. The summer after my senior year, after I graduated, I stayed in Madison, and at that point I had a car available to me. I knew the town. I'd been there for 4 years. Everybody that I was friends with stayed in town for the most part. And it was an awesome summer because you have the benefit of hanging out with everybody that you normally hang out with, but you don't have the responsibility of school. I mean, you do your internship or work or whatever that might be. And then in the evenings, it was grilling out, going to parks, playing games, just hanging out. And it was an awesome summer. I wish I would have maybe stayed more too, maybe a couple other summers and given that a shot.
Oh, I dipped out for graduating. I graduated college, and I don't even think I didn't even say goodbye to people. I just packed up all my crap and left, and I didn't even walk. I didn't do any of that stuff. The school emailed me my diploma. I just dipped out.
They emailed you the diploma, so you have like a
No,
printed out
mailed it.
copy. Oh, okay,
Mailed it.
okay.
Sorry. Yeah, they mail you like the diploma and the transcripts. But
If it makes you feel
I-
better, at graduation they gave you an empty thing anyway. Like
Did they?
they mail you your diploma anyway.
Did they like say that? Like we're on like
Yeah, they
the
told us right
stage?
away. They basically just gave us a little like a thing that would hold it in the future, but it never
Mhm.
actually like it didn't even. I don't even think it would fit the diploma. Like I legit don't know if the holder was like big enough to actually hold the diploma.
Like I got like a little like handheld one too, like a little flip book thing.
Yeah, I think that was like that wasn't the diploma, but that was like the little flip book thing they just like handed you. So everybody's was like exactly the same. But is it time for throne stock? I think it might be.
Do. Oh, yeah. No, go ahead.
I mean, I could. I mean, if you want to go for it, Brent.
Oh, I definitely cannot trust him.
You get it. That's the theme of Game of Thrones. Who's kicking us off? I think I did last week.
Nick, take the honor. It's the final episode. Bring us home.
The honor. Wow. The honor is all mine. I'll ask that you don't interrupt for a little bit, and I'll go on my brief rant, and then I'll step away and
hear
only
it.
provide additional input if asked specifically. Otherwise, I'll just blow up on people, and that's not
Ready to
fun to
receive.
listen to.
Oh, wait.
So-
Right before you start, throw in at least 2 good things. Continue.
2 good things before I.
No, just as you're going, as you're two good things within your.
Oh, we're gonna
entire
get them out of the
spiel.
way. We're gonna rip the Band-Aid off. 2 good things.
Yes.
Okay, start with one
Things
good
that
thing.
occurred.
Oh, wait, start with one good thing and end with one good thing. That was
No,
like
I
a
don't
sandwich
believe in the
theory. It's
sandwich
just
technique.
it's a really
Nope.
thick sandwich.
Ghost finally got the pets that he deserves.
That is true.
That was a good thing where they decided to spring and have Jon Snow at the very end giving Ghost some pets. It was entirely fan service, and I appreciated it, seeing as my dog is named Ghost. The other good thing.
Nick, do you have to cut off one of your dog's ears now?
Yeah, I think
No.
you should.
I think
I
you
think
have
I do
to.
not.
It's the only thing that
I'm
makes
gonna
sense.
bite out. You can bite out
Eruptions.
one of the ears.
Just let him
If
get this
I may.
through.
Eruptions. So the other good thing.
By the way, spoiler
is-
alert, if you're not fully caught up with all of Game of Thrones, stop listening.
Kyle, stop interrupting.
I know. We forgot to spoiler alert it.
Anyway, the other good thing act was the last episode, and that those are the only 2
no.
positive things I can think to say. And quite frankly, the creators of the TV show, not the book series, mind you, have completely butchered everything and lost their minds. And I'll let speak to this situation where they're working on 2 projects at once. I don't care what the excuses are. Ultimately, this season was a complete and utter failure. You have to accept that this is their telling of the story, and frankly, their storytelling sucks. It is like an 8th grader tried to summarize the grand plot and basically said, okay, well, we're going to copy everything out of the books for the first 6 seasons. And then there's nothing to go on. So 2 more seasons should be enough to cover the events. Hey, George, the author of the books, by the way. Hey, George, what's supposed to happen in these in the end here? Like we figured these things out, and that's qualified us for this job, aka that Jon Snow is in fact a Targaryen. We figured that out, so we've proven ourselves in your eyes, which is very nice. How is this all supposed to end? Okay, it appears that you have about 12 steps to this process. How about 2 seasons, and each episode can we could probably just make that about a step. Although my numbers are not entirely off, just for the accuracy of the situation. Point where he was George R. R. Martin clearly said this is what's supposed to happen, and they basically took an episode and dedicated it to, okay, this is what's supposed to happen. Apparently, they forgot to ask about character arcs. Apparently, they forgot to understand how these characters got in these situations in the first place. And ultimately, what we got was a very visually stimulating product that had no story, no logic, and it's just no good. I don't know how to word that any better. I guess for the summarizing of the actual episode, I can get off my horse on how horrible it was. But the episode consisted of Jon Snow talking to Tyrion after he was thrown in prison. And Tyrion says, you need to do what's right. It basically killed Daenerys. And Jon Snow says, I can't do it. I love her. She's my queen. All the other lovely BS that he's been feeding us. Lots of silence. Lots of what they've been doing all season. They don't have the ability to write good dialogue because they're idiots. So they just put in these long, sullen silences to assume the tension is building. And it's pretty much crap. So Jon kills Daenerys. Drogon, the dragon, sees Daenerys is on the ground, sniffs her, bumps her, realizes something is wrong, gets super upset, realizes that Jon killed her, doesn't decide to eat Jon, that would be logical, decides to blow off some steam. And by blow off some steam as a dragon, I mean blow some fire at, oh, look, the Iron Throne, because it needed to be melted. And that seemed like the most logical way to do it. Never mind that Jon is still standing there ready to be eaten by the flippin' dragon. So then the dragon takes Daenerys' body and flies off because why not? Sure, that seems like a good way to just get the dragon out of the story. That way no one has to slay the dragon. So Jon is left there, and now apparently Grey Worm is running things and takes Jon hostage, and we time warp forward. And I may be missing a few things if you guys want to jump in. But we time warp forward, and now it's a council of all the leaders of the world who are left. And they bring Tyrion forward, who was in jail. And they didn't bring Jon, and then they sit there and say, oh, well, Tyrion's here, and we need to pick a ruler to decide what the fate of Tyrion and Jon Snow is. Grey Worm doesn't want to give them up. He wants revenge, and apparently just let them sit in the prison for the passing several months while everyone made their way to King's Landing. I don't know. So everyone's here, and Jon's not there, but he's in prison, and Tyrion's there, and they're like, okay, well, we need a king to decide what's going to happen. They make some jokes about democracy. The comedy in this moment was actually, okay, there was another good thing. The comedy, although horribly timed, was decent. But you have to have been in such an attitude. Two things, Nick. You had to be in such an attitude of, I don't give a crap about what the story is here to appreciate the comedy. But I was already in that mood. Yeah, where the uncle stepped in, and that was all. But at any rate, they spew a bunch of crap in our face, and Tyrion attempts. This is the writers attempting dialogue, and frankly,
sorry if I may, real quick, that uncle has been completely useless the entire story. Like, this is the same guy that missed the flaming arrow to light his dad on fire or whatever. And then somebody had to take his bow,
the mountain, and captured the mill when he was supposed to be letting the mountain stay.
And he was
there.
also the one that got married during the Red Wedding. That was him. He was the one that got married during the Red Wedding, and then was just basically a captor for the remaining seasons until recently.
And then he got punked by Jaime Lannister into giving them River Run, and yeah. So a lot of he's a useless character. He came forward, burned it, and I deserve it, and blah blah blah. And that was a good joke. Everyone, I think Sansa just told him to sit down, which again, from a writing perspective, he doesn't know her. He's never actually met her. I think I was talking with Kyle about that, and it's just okay, that's horribly disrespectful outside of the comedic effect from the audience, because you know that he's a useless character. And of course we know Sansa's story, but for her to just tell him to do that was stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It's just horrible.
Yeah, it makes sense for the audience, but in real life it doesn't make sense, because you're right.
Makes none whatsoever.
I thought it was funny initially until Nick brought up they've never actually talked to each other since she was maybe a little kid. They're never in the same scene together, ever.
Never. Right. So for her to just be like, sit down, it's like, okay, you're a woman. That's a big thing in Westeros to get over. And then this is a man, a lord of Riverrun, who's your uncle or whatever by family or by blood. And you've never seen him. And the first thing you say to him is just sit down after he's asking to or making his claim to be king. Again, as a viewer, hilarious from an
To be fair, with the time
standpoint.
warp, they might have talked a couple times before then.
Okay, you're making assumptions to defend them.
Yeah, let's not help them out.
No, I'm not.
At any rate, return to silence, please. As we're sitting there at this great council, the directors tried their hand at dialogue and gave Tyrion this lovely speech. And Peter Dinklage, to his credit, tried to give a great Tyrion speech, and it could not have flopped harder. And he basically claims that people love stories and people will believe in stories. And he then goes on to claim that Bran Stark has the best story, and then proceeds to name him Bran the Broken. And everyone votes for him to be the king except Sansa. And Sansa basically says, okay, well, he can't have children and he can't this, but she gets past that. But then she says, oh, well, the North fought against the Night King and the North needs to be free. They allow it. Most BS thing ever. Oh, there was also a joke about democracy and giving everyone a vote, and that got laughed off by the Lords. That wasn't really a comedy moment. Maybe it could have been, but they had touched the democracy button, and it just got laughed at, as it would have in that figurative world. But Sansa wants the North to be free, and they agree to it. So now it's the Six Kingdoms. Oh, by the way, Dorne, in the history of Westeros, has never been conquered. To the quote-unquote Seven Kingdoms through marriage. And that fell apart when Rhaegar divorced, or whatever the equivalent of divorce is, the princess from Dorne, and married Lyanna Stark to have Jon Snow. But Dorne has never been conquered, and now they've got a new prince who's just at this council miraculously, and somehow he agrees to stay as part of the Six Kingdoms. That's the biggest joke in the world. And then if you're one of the any other kingdoms, what's the advantage to staying under Bran the Broken to be ruled as, part of the kingdoms? It was just the biggest, most poorly written scene ever to have one Bran be the Night King, the guy, or not, excuse me, who has done nothing even against the Night King. There's this scene where Tyrion talks to Bran and it pans away, so we don't get to see any of the details. Presumably, they talked and Tyrion understands what Bran's powers are now, but guy who is not doing anything on the sidelines the entire time, despite being damn near omnipotent, is all of a sudden thrust into the throne, which raises all kinds of tinfoil theories of, okay, you had all this power, you could see all of the past, you can even see some of the future with Greensight, and you've claimed, I can't be the Lord of Winterfell, I can't be a lord, I can't be Bran Stark anymore, and now you have the audacity to stand there when they ask you to be king and say, oh, why do you think I came all this way? So that's like the biggest slap in the face troll moment ever, to basically say, oh yeah, no, I was just pulling the strings the whole time to make sure that I was the king. Like, I mean, that's not what it was, but that's what it is. Like, based on how you wrote it, that's what it is. And it was the silliest, stupidest nonsense. Grey Worm, who was controlling the city, just says, yes, this all makes sense to me. We're going to leave now. And gives the city back to them, including Jon Snow, but he made a deal with them, so Jon Snow had to go to the Night's Watch and can't have children or whatever. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. They were just trying to tie up every little loose end, and they did a horseshit job. And ultimately, Jon Snow went to the wall, went north of the wall. I don't know if he's a ranger or if he just wanted to join the free folk, but he's with Ghost and gave Ghost the pats.
So, if I may, real quick, what I've heard from that is that he was escorting them back to their lands, essentially, and he's now the 1,000th keeper or whatever, guard, whatever the Night's Watch captain, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Yeah. So I think that's apparently what that story arc is supposed to be, that he's escorting them back to their home, their lands.
They didn't clarify that.
No, they didn't. It was very confusing. I
thought he was abandoning his post and just going north with them. I thought he was just leaving.
Right? That was the inside joke between he and Bran, like, oh, you're going to make me go to the Night's Watch. Good thing there is no Night's Watch. I'm just gonna go up here and live.
Yeah, I thought he was just abandoning
Grey
his
Worm.
post.
Oh no! Don't make me a Night's Watch. Oh God.
And Arya became a pirate. I was excited about that.
Yep. Sorry, I'll finish up real quick on the rest of it. Had to go west of Westeros to sail off into the abyss and see what happens. And maybe there'll be
1492.
a new story there.
All right. Let 'em go.
Sailor from the
The island of Narth with all the Unsullied, because why not just go conquer your dead girlfriend's home city? And the Dothraki disappeared, I think, probably went back. I don't know.
Yeah,
And then they had just the other leaders. I think the next thing they did was the council, the Broken, which is just a horrible name for a king, but whatever. They showed the hand. They made Tyrion the hand, and then why am I blanking on the name of the council? What is that?
I didn't know the name.
Just
the King's Council or whatever. It's
The
literally
King's
just a hand's council.
whatever. They just show that, and they made Bronn the Lord of Highgarden per his demands of Tyrion and Jaime, and he's also the Master of Coin. Brienne
to be fair,
is,
if I may, to be fair, like I don't see how they would have to even pay up for that. Like Cersei's dead. Like, anyhow, continue.
Ministers always pay their debts, I guess, is what you could claim. But no, he was a loved character, so they signed him and they had to put him in X number of episodes. So he is the Master of Coin. Sir Davos is the Master of Ships. Brienne is the leader of the King's Guard. Podrick is also a member of the King's Guard.
He's on wheelchair duty.
And then Sam, despite being with Gilly and having a child, is the Grand Maester, which doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense. And is that all of them?
Yeah, there's only 4 at the time.
Yeah, they're missing people.
And they're missing other positions that'll get filled in. They have some awkward moments where they say hi to Bran, and the formatting of their conversation and the formalities aren't right. And he's just kind of like, whatever. And Tyrion's like, it'll get better.
Why do they need a Master of Whisperers when Bran can warg into ravens and see whatever he wants?
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Like I said, really, really stupid writing. And ultimately, I'm just glad it's over. They can't ruin it more than they did, which they did. So with that, I will let you take over.
I have a question for you, Nick. Do you think the seasons would have been better if they didn't rush it in the number of episodes and maybe made everything twice as long? So say like the Battle of Winterfell was actually like 2 episodes long and kind of explained everything in more depth and like got a lot deeper, better scenes. Do you think like the seasons would have been a lot better if they would have just split it up into?
If they would have stuck to the normal formula of a somewhat exciting start, a bunch of episodes that drag on forever, giving you all the plot and story, character development, and then a finale style.
Yeah. Like would have started with the Battle of Winterfell and then like all the whole story in between from them traveling and like all everyone like developing their characters developing and then finally like the battle down. I can't even think of it right now. But
King's
against,
Landing.
Like, the gold.
So yeah, that's one good thing.
To answer
Go ahead,
the
Nick.
question, to answer the question, the answer is yes, with a caveat being that the idea that the Night King, boss, is unacceptable. Literally, the first episode of the show, it is established this is the great beyond, the thing everyone needs to drop everything and deal with this. The fact that you would go from that, and it was so short, and you could make it longer, and that might make it better, but to go from that and how that was depicted through seasons, and then in one episode, so the length might fix that, but then to have to turn around and say, okay, nothing has changed, we need to go deal with Cersei, it's like, that's bad writing. I'm sorry.
If I may,
there's something else to it.
What they probably should have done is ended this episode with the Night King battle, and then have another season, end this season with the Night King battle, and then have another like epilogue season of after that. So like the Night King story is complete after this season, and then there's one extra 8 seasons of story, and then one extra tack on season for us to see what happens afterwards. That's like the epilogue chapter. Like, I think that would have been a much better format
in that sense. But you have to have the showing of time, whether that's an epilogue status or like, okay, another 2 years passes of winter. Because, okay, Kyle, you and I have had this discussion where, okay, the Night King brought the winter, but it's not like Night King affects the season. Like, there's still going to be a winter to an extent. And the stories have been that, okay, certain things are impassable. Like, remember when Stannis Baratheon says, we're going to get trapped in Castle Black because we can't march because it's going to get, it's winter, which is a logical, normal statement. But then throughout season 7 and 8, people are back and forth between Castle Black on horses, no problem. Okay, this is a bad joke. Like, if you're going to go from, okay, you've defeated the Night King, this is the battle for humanity, great, but then winter needs to then run its course as a normal season of some variety, and it needs to impact South.
I don't know if I may. I think I always thought that the Night King was partially, at least, affecting winter. Like, it's more dangerous and scary and intense of a winter because he's there and he's coming. That's I even from the beginning, I've had that interpretation in my mind.
To an extent, it's worse, but in the histories of Westeros and the lore, the canon from the book, if you will, they say it has been tradition of men in the North to abandon their families at the beginning of winter to go out to the woods and die. And that's not because of the Night King. It's because there's not enough food to support a family. And either they would, like, old men would go out into the woods and just freeze to death so that their families could eat what food there was and survive. And the other thing they would do is they would go to war. In the histories of Westeros, when winter's approaching, the Northmen would go to war because it was either you go out into the woods and freeze to death to give your family the best chance of surviving with the food that they have, or you march south.
So if I may, I think
your life is forfeit already.
I think you're bringing up stuff that is not TV show canon. Like, that's never shown in canon. That's never shown in the TV show. So I don't think you can hold that against the show per se as a reason.
At the same time, though, I kind of like that, and the show should have been able to go into a little bit deeper had they not rushed it.
They had more time, per Dylan's comment.
If I may, though, I take a different perspective. I don't mind the Night King not being the final boss. Martin has never given me the impression that magic is the end all be all, and that the true monster is always the humans and that kind of thing. So I'm okay if you push that angle and that's how you want to approach it.
I fell out of my chair.
Weren't the first 7 seasons building up to the Night King rebuilding his army?
But it was also building up to the whole Battle of the Throne. Like, that's always also subverted. Both of them have been. The throne has always been on people's.
That's what I'm saying. The battle for the throne has always been there, but the major plot of Game of Thrones has been this buildup of the Night King.
For some characters. It was the throne. It was separate.
Yes, both the throne and the Night King are important, and both are the two main overarching plots of the entire book. Like literally the first movie, it's called Game of Thrones is the series. So there is the Game of the Thrones, but then like the very first one, the Song of Ice and Fire, like, or just, ice, the Night King, literally season 1, episode 1, scene 1 was the Night King.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't mind. Well, I mean, I don't mind that the throne is the final thing. That's fine with me. It's just what they did with the Night King, where they didn't give any background. I don't have any information about Bran warging or what the Three-Eyed Raven actually is, having not read the books yet. I think that is the criminal part of it, is that there's so many questions left unanswered that it just feels empty. Like, I feel empty not knowing, well, what was Bran doing the whole time during the thing? Oh, let's just ignore it. I think what was the Night King's purpose? Let's just ignore it. Like, that feels like I'm being cheated out of something. And I don't, like I'm saying, I don't mind it if the Night King's not the final boss, but why is he there if he's not have any importance at all?
I think Brent's got the main point of this whole season is that I think the Thrones battle, I guess, was wrapped up fairly well, and all loose ends were pretty well tied up for the Thrones ending. Although not in the best way, it was still all tied up at least. But yeah, Brent's right. The ice, the White Walkers were not tied up. You just don't have all the information you feel you need to have that story resolved. And there's too many open questions in that storyline to have that one be fully closed for us as viewers.
Can I give my impression? And this is what I told Heather after the episode was over. And this is the big event of the year. I come out after watching that and I told her, she's like, how was the episode? And in my opinion, I was like kind of bored. Like, it just, everything tied up pretty nicely, a neat little package. It didn't seem like anything of real substance happened. All of our characters got these nice, happy endings, and it just did not feel like how Game of Thrones should have ended.
I don't know if anyone got that. The whole episode was them wrapping up everything,
but nicely with little bows. Like, that's not how it should have been.
It did kind of feel like the Lord of the Rings ending, where like that was the end of the movie. Nope. Oh, still go. Oh, that's the end of the movie. Oh, nope. Okay, that's got to be the end of the movie. I think that's kind of the direction it was going with the whole Lord of the Rings-esque ending.
And if it's in a book, if the book ends that way, that could be good, because in that format, you can hash out a little bit more details to everything. You can make it connect better. It's not going to be like, the book hasn't been finished yet. It's definitely not going to be a rushed storytelling event like Nick, what you have to for TV. But in TV, it just left me wanting, I'm just like, oh, it's over. Okay.
Nick, did you read the book for this season?
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist?
Dude, that'd be impressive if we did.
Okay, I didn't realize they didn't exist yet.
The last two books haven't been released.
Okay. All right, never mind then. My question no longer is valid. I was gonna ask if you knew. I was gonna ask if you knew why Ghost was missing an ear. They didn't explain that at all. All of a sudden, it's just like, here's Ghost.
That's simple enough.
What's that?
It was part of the Dothraki charge, where all of the Dothraki were killed, except magically half of them were not.
Dude, yeah, that I will say.
By the way, there was like a shit ton of Dothraki in this last episode.
I know. That is honestly one of my biggest problems with this whole season, is because of that damn Dothraki charge, and all of a sudden after that they have a shit ton of Dothraki. Like, it's just so painful into my logical part of my brain to think that this is now possible because of what I've previously seen happen to these Dothraki.
That was probably the most cringing part about the episode in terms of what is that? Uncontinuity? Or
discontinuity.
Discontinuity. That was like the one that was like blatantly obvious.
So that plagued the entire battle against the Night King. What they were showing us happening versus what they were telling us happened were two very different things. And the fact that it didn't align, it stuck a thorn in a lot of people. Sorry, go ahead, Brent.
Question for you: do the Dothraki and Unsullied have like a common language, or
no? Two different languages.
So when they were doing this, like, did they just not understand half of what was going on, or the whole speech thing kind of confused me.
And the fact that she can speak to the Dothraki from on top of all those stairs over all the Unsullied, I laughed my ass off thinking that bitch better have a megaphone. she's talking to the Dothraki.
That's what I thought initially when she did that in season 7 with like her dragon behind her, and she yelled out to that massive horde. I'm like, there's no, like, if I'm in the back of there, I'm like, what is she saying? Like, what'd she just say? It was
on the front cheer. Like,
she's speaking some barbarian language, and they both groups, the Unsullied and Dothraki, are thinking that as they hear each other's languages. It's like, wait, I follow this person. Why? What?
Well, and the thing is, I think what they're implying is that most of the people are able to speak multiple languages. Like, it's far more common to be able to speak multiple languages in that world.
And if the
there's
Unsullied,
the Common Tongue, High Valyrian, which is also what the Unsullied speak. There's Dothraki, and I think there's one or two others probably.
yeah, I think because because the Unsullied are soldiers, they're maybe forced to learn the multiple languages, especially for the Dothraki, which are a people in their continent.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a valid point and a valid concern. But it's just a series of horrible mistakes where they're showing one thing. They were so focused on the visual spectacle, bother to actually tell a story that made any sense. If you show all the Dothraki dying, the Dothraki are now all dead. Don't then in the next episode say, oh, we've got half of them left. And I think we tore that episode apart where it basically didn't show enough bodies. It didn't show enough funeral pyres, and Winterfell was completely destroyed, and this and that and the other thing. Another thing I heard in the analysis from a lot of YouTube creators was, okay, if Drogon could do that to King's Landing, the Night King's dragon, Viserion, should have been able to annihilate Winterfell without blinking.
Yeah, especially if he commits right from the get-go.
I think we also talked about how magically Dragonfire can destroy stone walls and blow them up, and 20,000... Again, the storytelling. We were told there are 20,000 soldiers for the Golden Company. This is a big deal. They've never lost a battle. They're here. This is going to change everything.
Well, yeah,
and to your point,
what
the White Walker dragon blasts the entire wall down and then can't just do that same thing to all of Winterfell.
There were two dragons.
So what they were showing us was horribly inconsistent with what they were telling us. 20,000, dragon, full wall. Okay, they destroyed it. Dragon, Winterfell. He's going to roll around in the rocks for fun for a little while. Like, okay. Dragon, King's Landing. Yes, basically Dragonfire's dynamite. You have the Golden Company, 20,000 strong. The gate collapses, which would have killed maybe 1,000 men or more. Okay, what about the other 19,000? Oh, yeah, they just gave up because, explosions and dragons. Like, right there. Like,
or Arya
what they showed us and what they told us was horribly just...
Arya kills the Night King and then doesn't do anything for the last 3 episodes. Like, almost gets killed just in buildings.
Yeah, Arya's
I
arc.
don't know.
Arya's arc was, I think, okay,
Unsatisfying.
except the ending was definitely a little bit unsatisfying. One thing I wanted to go back to, at one point, I think you were talking about the gap in between of time when it kind of blacked out and then it was the council. I thought that was okay. I wasn't terribly bothered by that. I think the entire decision to have Bran be the king, I think that plot point was a good plot point. It was the execution of it that was not good. I'm
tried
totally
to write a
cool.
Tyrion speech and it failed miserably.
Like, if you think about the entire, all the main plot points of the series, or this season anyway, I think all the plot points are good plot points. They were just told in such a bad way. That's my take on it. I guess this final episode here, I enjoyed it. I think it was I wasn't, happy with everything that happened, but I think it was an okay conclusion to the series. I guess my standards have been lowered enough where it was it's better than I expected for a conclusion going into it. But I think the plot points were really good, and I think Nick's right. If you go out and read the George R. R. Martin books, which I probably never will, it'll be a much more satisfying ending because all those plot points will still be there. They'll just be told in a much more methodical way.
Okay, so we see, and I just had this random thought, and I totally agree with you, Kyle. I had this random thought. So there are the reason why the kings are allowed, all these noblemen are allowed to meet, was because there's a bunch of Northmen outside of the city ready to do business, and obviously they must have overpowered or be enough to overpower the Dothraki and the Unsullied. then why didn't like John just go with those guys and be like, I'm taking over? Or like, what were they doing while John was getting captured? It doesn't add up. Sometimes it just doesn't add up. It's like, obviously they still have a lot of they outnumber them, but at the same time, they don't control a city. How's that working? No, I'm having existential a crisis here. I'll stop.
All right. Anybody else got anything? Otherwise, Brent, you want
Hurts
to
the
wrap us
brain.
up?
That was episode 49 of If I May. I hope you enjoyed. A new episode every Thursday. Please consider supporting us either through merchandise on Teespring, subscribing, sharing, rating, and reviewing. Always appreciated. If you want to get in contact with us to give us ideas for topics that you want to hear or have us talk about, please give us a DM on Twitter at Zarubust or send us an email, zarubust@gmail.com. We hope you have a great Thursday, and we'll see you next.